This is Robert Phoenix, and this is the Astro Weather. All right, greetings and salutations. How is everyone today? I've been just scrolling through the comments just a wee bit, and it looks like cold is the word, not grease, but cold. So I have the remnants of a cup of hot coffee that I'm going to be sipping during the first few minutes of the show as we open the doors, of the church, and the parishioners come in. As I do my best, I have a bit of an Irish brogue as I pretend to be an Irish priest. I have a deer in my backyard, just chilling out. What's happening, dearie? What's happening, dearie? We have a deer mafia here. They shake down the houses. Seriously, they just go from house to house. And very intimidating. The numbers are intimidating. And they don't leave until they get something, some kind of deer corn or, it's like very interesting sort of social movement. Self-organizing. We got a buck. Wow. We don't just have a deer. We have a buck back here. Ooh. This deer could wind up as part of somebody's chandelier. Maybe he could make it over to Tucker Carlson's studio. I'm sorry, Tucker Carlson's studio kind of reminds me a little bit of Cracker Barrel. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, let's go for that LL Bean look. We're going to wear flannel and be Americana. This is our fashion statement. I just keep looking at this buck over here. It's like he doesn't have a care in the world. And he's probably, if I were to classify him, he's probably like maybe 18 years old. Like he's just, those horns are really starting to become prominent. That's a lot of the deer I see back here are does. Lots of does, but rarely do you see a buck like that. It's a very, very impressive animal. Tomorrow it's going to be super cold. We can see this coming. If you follow the Astro Weather, last week we talked about it. We talked about just how cold it was going to be. Let's see. Let's do a quick little name check. DJ MC, the new next. Thunder over Warriors last night. I know it was close there for a minute until Steve Kerr decided to pull out my guy, Quentin Post, fourth-rated defensive player in the NBA. That game is a lot closer than it should have been. Jackie Delario. Pedrita picking up the live. What's up, Pedrita? Mary Grether's here. GMC McCarthy World. Hola, hola, hola. Yes, warm and toasty is the day. This is quite the thumbnail. I know it took me by surprise. AI took my breath away. Debisu, well, I hope your hair appointment goes well. Debisu, what's going on? Lena Winkler, trying to shine here in the cornfields, but icy cloud is blocking part of it. I guess that's inside fun today. Devin Dewar, what's up, Double D? Good to see you. Yeah, Texas getting a bit of a cold snap. I don't mind it. I like dramatic weather. I like being able to wear sweaters and jackets and coats that I have, which normally you can't wear in Texas. So I'm good with it. Jam Chloe, what's happening, Jam Chloe? There's Janine. Hello, Janine. Moira, snowed all day yesterday. Looks pristine until the dogs leave their mark. Ooh, don't eat that yellow snow. David Flores, what's going on, David? Always lost for words, but I'm here. That's good. You're here. I'm here. Reality check. One Bill Smith. What's going on, Bill Smith? One Bill Smith. Misbehaving. You're always going to be misbehaving to me without your THX identification. Diane Evans. What's going on, Diane? Christine Mose. Hi back. PB1 is here. Speaking of Pegasus, please tell me you've seen the classic Key and Peele comedy sketch. Yes. Key and Peele are actually really funny. I have to say they're really funny. My favorite is the guys from the different colleges. Oh my god, that's hilarious. Esperanza Venstaro, what's going on? Good to see you. There's the Centaur Truther. It's her time of month, in a good way. Her time of year. Sorry. Stretch out the calendar a little bit. Sharon Lewis is here. Hi, Sharon. Amy's here. Toronto Casper. What's up, Toronto Casper? Yeah, the Astro Weather fam is great. Getting an oil change. Getting an old change, Sam. Great day. An old change. Are you swapping out old people in your home? Or is that an oil change? I think it's an oil change. You got a warm electric blanket on. Man, I remember my parents had an electric blanket. It was like a thing of marvel. It's like, how come I don't get this? Let's see. Without movement, there is no hot coffee. Love the thumbnail. Yeah, thumbnail turned out really well. I was like, whoa. It wasn't really quite what I was thinking of, but it was close enough for jazz, as they say. Speaking of jazz, there's Josie's Jazzy Junk. You mean his expensive pseudo cabinet? It's got something very Truman Showy about it. I'm sorry, and there are parts of Tucker that I like. Okay, like I can't wholly dismiss Tucker Carlson, but he's been such a dick to Nick Fuentes in the last couple of weeks. It was like, what was that interview all about? And I'm going to talk a little bit about this over on 15 Minutes of Flame. I'm going to focus mainly on Tucker and not Candace. But it's like, you're all somewhat over the target. Why not figure out a way to work together and maximize your message so you have the greatest impact on theoretically really truly making America first, instead of trying to undercut people who are either in your marketplace or in the same mind space. Let me change my mic. It's like, what, we're stronger together than we are apart. Anyway, I'm going to look more at the relationship with Tucker and Nick. A little bit of Candace, not as much though. But right, it feels very Truman Showy. The whole thing's like, it's just like, it's all, I mean, but I do think, like, it's not happening on some back lot somewhere. Oh, there's another deer back there. I wonder if that's his mate. They're both just sitting there so peaceful. It's a good thing they're in a suburban neighborhood, because if they were somewhere else, that buck, he wouldn't stand much of a chance. I mean, Tucker lives in Maine now, doesn't he? Doesn't he live in Maine? You got to fly into Maine to go to his studio cabin. It's not like it's a part of his set somewhere in DC or New York or LA. It's actually a real place, but it feels very Truman Showy. Oh, Amy, this is a very interesting question. Makes me wonder how the AI center is going to affect rural animal populations. Well, the AI centers create what I would call like a gray noise, not just like a friendly white noise that you might use when you go to bed, but a gray noise. And I saw this video clip where they actually had one of those spectrographs that represent sound. And so they had this whole bandwidth of sound that you can see like on the screen, right? And then with the audio editing software, they were able to, it was almost like, when you do like a remove background or something like that tool, but it was like they were removing the because they can identify the bandwidth of the sound. Like when you do sound editing, you can see it. You can see the different sounds, and they've got different signatures and everything. And so it's like kind of reading the, sort of the sonic code in some ways. So they removed the sound of the data centers, and beneath that, you could hear the sound of birds. And I feel like, everything is so interconnected, and that the sound of birds and bird calls are part of the, it's part of this organic weave, right? And if you take out part of it, it begins to affect everything else. Like when the birds get up in the morning and they start to, chirp and sing their songs, it's also a call to other animals, right? That something is happening, because the birds they're up before dawn, and there's just this organic kind of chain of events that takes place. And so the sound of the data centers disrupts all of that. And that's just from an oral perspective, and not from a vibrational perspective, because you also know that, all that electricity is not good, right? It's not good. It's like living around, and like cancer clusters, like transformer stations, because the amount of electricity that's being thrown off. It's like hugely static and not very healthy. I just don't. Anyway, that's not. I went into this yesterday over on 15 minutes. So if you're interested in that, you should check that out. Let's see. Dear me, okay. Maria D'Ange, what's going on from Europa? We got Steve Thor at the door. What's up, Steve? Catherine Rosen is here. Hi, Catherine. Tucker is in the Boondocks, Maine. Very real appropriate. Actually been there. Well, I get it, right? Like I know he's in Maine, and I know that's part of the culture and everything. I don't know, but it also seems very. And like I said, there are parts of Tucker that I like. I'm not here to just completely diss Tucker. Now the deer's using his antlers to scratch his back. I feel like I'm part of a nature documentary or something. Let's see. Who else do we have? Hey, Ratchet Boo, what's going on? Carol, I get you. I understand it. It just feels. It feels a little. Have you been to Tucker's cabin? I believe it's real. I'm not saying it's a set or anything, but I just don't. I don't dig the post Nick Fuentes slights. Like, move on. Like, you had that thing with him. Move on. You know, you did your best, but it's like, it just feels like there's always these kind of backhanded digs now. And it's just, I know, it's just really weird. Wait till spring, you'll see those antlers already. No, I can see them. They're big. Yeah, he's scratching his back. I feel like this is a National Geographic moment from the sunroom. He's actually like, that's actually smart. Like, yeah, let me scratch that back with these antlers. That's how big they are. Baby Rebozo. It's never been the same since buying Little the Tears. And that's funny. Cherie Phillips. Don't ever be a number. Rafi, what's up? Good to see you. Kabuki Theater. Bo is here. Hey, Bo. Julie Sunshine. Zerlith Immortal. Hey, Steve. Lurk and Work. Who else? There's Scam Bankster Fraud. It's been a while. We're glad you're back. They're all there to discredit, not unify opposition. It's true. It's what it feels like. And this is why, you know, I wouldn't say we don't stand a chance, but come on, people. Let's get on the same page. Let's see. IGP. I refuse to say these numbers. You can have a pseudo cabin studio in the back of your main mansion. Look, I think Tucker is doing his best to try to muster some authenticity. And I feel like he's lived a very artificial life in a lot of ways to begin with. And I think there is part of him that is grappling with that. Like he's trying to be real and more relatable and, more common man, because that's not how he lived a very privileged life. Anyway, enough about Tucker. I do think he does some good work and brings some people on there. Like, it's funny because Nick Fuentes, and I'll talk more about this over on 15, but Tucker had Dane Wigington on a show, and I've had Dane on my show a long time ago. Like, I had Dane on my show back in the 2010s, and now he's finally made it to Tucker Carlson. And Nick made a bit of a disparaging remark about chemtrails, and it's like, can't we sit down and have it like a forum or a community that can accept both the fact that chemtrails are an issue and also the exertion of a foreign power over the influence of our government and the power structures that have been set up around that foreign government, and a particular iteration of a culture that also supports. Why cannot we have room at the table for both? This is my biggest qualm, and I think, not to toot my own horn, but I'll do it a little bit. I think I have a really wide aperture and am able to bring together a lot of different facets of the ongoing conversation about what's going on in our world and how these supposedly disparate or separate elements are actually connected if you go deep enough, right? They're not isolated. They're not, I mean, basically, let's be honest, like, chemtrails are like bug spray. That's what they are. They're like bug spray. And who's doing the bug spraying? Okay, let's get into the weather. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I think we've all basically assembled. There we go. We'll make that a little smaller. And we'll make that right there. Make that a little bit bigger. Okay. So there's that moon, 21 Taurus. That's that. By the way, it's right around the degree of Tucker's sun sign. I think he's in the early 20s in Taurus. He said Uranus on his sun. And that's why I think Tucker has, in some ways, gone through a bit of a radicalization. But if I'm being really honest, it's not radical enough. It's like, okay, you were kind of there. You were getting kind of there at Fox. You were kind of must-see TV because you were getting a little truthy on Fox, and then boom, you got dumped. And there's a reason why he got dumped. But he was almost there, right? He was almost there. It was the beginning of the radicalization of Tucker Carlson. And now we're seeing this next iteration. And Tucker, you're almost there. You're almost there. Like, just try not to muddy the waters too much. He was on Piers Morgan. He sounded kind of hysterical. Like his how much can a human being actually take when it comes to being on all the time? I'm telling you, there are limits because you have to get on planes, you have to prepare. Like everything becomes about the thing that you're doing. And if you're really, really obsessed about something, you're going to have that experience. That's a byproduct of just wanting to be successful in a lot of ways. But when I saw him on with Piers Morgan, I have to save it. I have to save my material. But this mood is around his sun right now. And so we're off that Moon-Venus opposition. I had some really fascinating readings yesterday, one of which I'm going to talk a little bit about in an anonymous way, but interesting. It has to do with the star of the day. We're still in that Grand Trine territory. We got Mercury at 21, getting closer to Saturn, getting closer to Neptune, getting close, so that water Grand Trine is tightening. And I think this is a time of great intentionality. Great intentionality. So if you are intentional, if you are really, and you would think, okay, well, springtime is the time where you want to be starting something, you want to be intentional, like planting, where's the moon, all the things that go along with that. Why wait till the springtime? And I'm not talking about going out planting, but planting certain seeds. And they're the retrogrades, with the exception of Saturn now, it's direct, I think can be very helpful. Like budgeting could actually be interesting with a Jupiter retrograde. And I would do that. I would always, there was a time when I didn't have a lot of money. Like when I made a transition from being in .com to being an astrologer, there were times where I really had to stretch a dollar, and I was a parent of a young child, and so I had a lot of those things I had to take care of and pay for on the child side of things. And I used to go to this place in Berkeley called Canned Foods. And for the longest time, I just thought this place sounds ridiculous. I'd always see it from the freeway. And one time I decided to go into Canned Foods, and it blew my fucking mind. I was born in the year of the rat. So we're very, we're very good at, finding deals and sometimes we go from being economical to being over lavish, but that's a different story. But I would go into this place and it was like a game for me. Like, how many quality things could I get and how little could I spend? It was very intentional. And the thing about Canned Foods is they would get a lot of discontinued products. And some of them were actually really good. It was like, why did they discontinue this? This is like, look at the label. Look at what's in here. This is actually a reasonable thing to eat, right? So what I'm saying is that if you're looking to tighten your belt and stretch your ever shrinking dollar, like this is an interesting time to do that. it's an interesting time to figure out, okay, well, this is another thing I used to do. This is just a game that I play with myself. I'd put certain things in my cart while I was shopping, not at canned foods, but like say at some other place. And I'd ask myself when I got up to the counter, and it wasn't like anything obnoxious, do I really need this? And there would be invariably like one or two things I would take out of my basket, and I would give it back to the checker. Say, can you use this as a go back? Oh yeah, sure, no problem. And so I afforded myself the sort of the time to think about whether I really needed it or not. And by the time I got up there, I didn't really need this. So I was able to save some money, right? So what I'm talking about is kind of turning it into a bit of a game. And I know we have the holidays coming up, and it's a time where a lot of people don't have a lot of money to throw around and buy gifts, right? So speaking of which, I'm going to have to do 2 ad reads today because normally I do Silver-Botanicals. And by the way, everybody who has reached out and purchased the Gift of the Magi bundle, thank you for that. Dean and Ray are really blown away by the support, and they came back from their road trip, and now they're fulfilling lots of orders. So thank you. And I'll bring that up again before the end of the show today. So yeah, be intentional and figure out ways, kind of turn it into a bit of a game. Like how can you streamline your operation, save some money. Like you think, I mean, sometimes it's just really minor stuff, but it adds up. Like timers for lights, since electricity, thanks to the data centers, is starting to go to the moon. It's stuff like that. And I know a lot of you are already like that, and Mercury Saturn square, Mercury Saturn trine, it's also a kind of a rededication of effort in some ways. So I like the Grand Trine, and I like the fact that we're dealing with some of the retrograde stuff. Look around your place. What are you not using? What can you send to Goodwill? It's like that's another thing with these retrogrades. Do I really need this? Jupiter retrograde. Do I really need this? No, I don't really need this. Let me offload this. Because what always happens, you get to make space for something different or new. Venus is at 3 Sagittarius. It's still, in a weird way, part of the Grand Trine by degree, but it doesn't have the same flow, as they say, with Mercury. And but I feel like it's an interesting iteration, at least for today, right? Because tomorrow Venus will move out to 4 degrees. It'll be at the edge of that 10-degree orb with Jupiter. It'll be at the edge of that 10-degree orb with Saturn. It'll still be closer in trine with Neptune, but it's in a very different element. Venus in Sagittarius wants, robust and hearty conversation and enjoys jokes and humor. It can be a bit bawdy, right? Venus in Sagittarius is a bit bawdy in some ways, and trining here with these water planets is really, really interesting. I feel like it's a bit poetic in a lot of ways as well. When I think of Sagittarius, I think of big open vistas and sweeping landscapes and big sky, and for whatever reason, like the Scottish Highlands come into my mind when I think of Sagittarius. The New Mexico sky, right? Stuff like that. It's like, oh yeah, big, awesome space. And Venus is always, in a lot of ways, the artistic or the aesthetic appreciation of the thing, not just the relationship part, but it's also the art part, right? And I feel like this Grand Trine can be really inspiring And, throughout your day, I don't know if you guys do this, but since we have these cell phones, we have the ability to take really high quality pictures all the time. Like it's just completely crushed the camera uh, business. But this would be a really good, like this shrine would be a really good time to like capture things. Keep your eye open to whatever it is that inspires you, whatever you perceive as something that's beautiful or interesting, right? Because those water planets, especially Neptune in Pisces, tend to be really creative. So it's like opening your inner eye and being able to capture, like even this. I'm telling you, like this deer is part of it. This is like part of this grand trine that I'm talking about. My windows need cleaning, and I don't want to stop the show, but it's one of those things where here's a capture, and then his little doughy mate about 20 feet away, right? So there's always something out there, and I find weird things that inspire me too. Like they don't always have to be beautiful, but they have to be beautiful to me. So be on the lookout for that today, because it's. I think as Sagittarius, as a sign that can be really inspiring when it's not being utterly cynical, if it's been sort of thwarted and turned down, but it can be really inspiring, and the joviality and the good naturedness and the humor and the hey, you can do it kind of attitude that Sagittarius brings with it. So keep your eyes open today for unexpected beauty or unexpected aesthetic values. It's the cultivation of your inner eye, right? Your artistic eye. And we also have a nice sextile between Venus and Pluto, and that also helps with some interesting interchange in having a meeting of the minds with people that could be really enriching. And the next thing you know, what sits down to be, a 20-minute cup of coffee, you're there for 90 minutes because you've been so engrossed in the conversation and sort of the depth of it, right? Be careful with that because it'd be a bit of a time killer. But also, if you're in the moment, and you can afford to be in the moment, be in the moment, and also from a larger perspective. We're in granular, and let's go sort of the grand view. Um, how would I describe this? Um, there's a lot of stumble upon quality with this Venus sextile to Pluto, and stumbling upon something. It's like, wow, I never realized that, or I never connected those dots before, or I never made this connection. So one of the things, if you're following this chess match between Trump and the administration and Maduro in Venezuela, is the revelation of Biden and the migration deal, right? And that's very Venus and Sag, sextile and Pluto. And Maduro is a Sagittarius, and he's taking advantage of this. He's like, hey, wait a minute, listen, I got some inside information for you. It's like he's a global leader, but he's also an informant. It's like this is what Biden did during his presidency, and setting us up and paying us to dump our people and get them involved in the migration train, right? Like that's coming out. That's a very Venus Pluto sextile. And when you get into sextiles, they have this kind of cardinal quality in some ways. It's like they were uniting. And I feel like that story is going to gain more legs. And it's one of those stories that, it's just it always astounds me. Like, we knew this stuff. We could see it happening. We knew it was going on. Come on. Cuba dumped all, a lot of their prisoners and people that they didn't want. They got rid of, no slight to gay people, but they got rid of a lot of gay people they didn't want. They got rid of people who were mentally ill, and they dumped them. And this is where we have, these flotillas. Not all of them. Some of them were people who are like, hey, I'm getting on that boat regardless, right? So it's a playbook. It was the flooding of Miami and Florida with Cubans. And so the same playbook, it was the playbook from Mexico, and Venezuela was using the same playbook. But they were being incentivized, and that's going to come out. Now, are they going to go run after Alex Mayorkas? I don't know. It feels to me like a lot of these Biden people are just, getting off easy. And it's because they're part of the uniparty. I mean, that's why Tony Blinken, Mayorkas, Merrick Garland, where are they? Right? I mean, they really, really, were playing tag team and fucking the country up. Where are they? They're nowhere to be found. And it seems like every day there's more and more evidence and information that Tony Fauci was a lying bastard. And again, we knew that. We knew it in real time, And the reason that some of that is coming out is because Saturn was in Aquarius when COVID hit. Now Pluto's in Aquarius, and it's crossing over that Saturn. So the revelations are emerging. But what they do with the revelations, that's a whole nother story. Mars squaring Neptune, Mars squaring Saturn. We talked about this before. Be careful with, like, even something as okay, let's talk about saying something, doing something, and getting out over your skis. Try not to get out over your skis, using a winter metaphor, with this Mars-Neptune square. It can be very self-defeating. Don't get out over your skis. All right. I'm going to do because you get out over your skis and you start promising things you can't deliver, then it's not the best recipe for success. All right, let me do a quick read for our friends at Silver-Botanicals, which I think I still have up here. Let's see. I guess I don't. Let me bring it up. Hold on. So I have this new housemate, and he's very into cologne. And I like the guy. I like the guy. He's a good dude, and he's coming through. He's coming through a very, let's just say, growth-filled period of his life. But I can smell his cologne all the way back here. He's like, dude, that's a lot. That's a lot. I stopped wearing cologne a long time ago. And it's not that I diss cologne, but it's just, it was a part of my life and then it wasn't. Okay. Whoa. Hold on. We're going to do a little share screen here. All right. We're going to do a little back-to-back read. So this is from our guys at Silver-Botanicals. I apologize to Dean and Ray. I should have got to this a little bit sooner, but hey, the response for the gift of the Magi bundle has been tremendous. Oh, look, the deer has laid his head down on the ground. He's sleeping. And you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 products, with the gift of the Magi being the centerpiece. And again, I cannot stress, and I did the show from their 2-man operation, just so impressive in San Marcos. I cannot impress enough the quality, the care, and the purity of the ingredients that go into these products. The highest silver that you can, the highest quality silver that you can nanofy all these wonderful organic essential oils from all over the world, right? So they've put it all together, and this is what you want out of a product. You don't want to cut corners. You don't want any cheap stabilizers. You don't want any heavy duty alcohol and all this other shit that goes into ultimately your body or on your body. Right? So this is your place to take care of what's inside your body, outside your body, in your house. It's all here. You get some sanitizer, you get the oral care, and at the center, the gift of the Magi spray, which is great for your personal space. If you've been with somebody, like, have one in your purse. If you've been with somebody and you've had like a funky interaction, get in your car. If you're a dude, you can do the same thing. Carry it in your car. It's like, man, I feel like I want to smudge after that shit. Oh, I've got the gift of the Magi. Oh, yeah, this is great. Yeah, it takes me right back to the good old days. The old, good, old days. Anyway, $79.94 makes a great gift opportunity, a great gift bundle for people in your life as well. All right, let's get into the True Hemp Science star of the day. So I'm going to run the banner, and I'm going to bring in our True Hemp Science star of the day. So we're going to have to go back here and run the old banner. And what's interesting is that both Chris and our guys at Silver-Botanicals are basically located within 45 miles of each other. So today's True Hemp Science Star of the Day, brought to you by TrueHempScience.com, your one-stop shop for all things CBD, is Daryl Hannah. And I had some interesting choices today. Patricia Krenwinkel, who is a part of the Manson family, it's her birthday today, and Tex Watson's birthday was yesterday. It's like, oh, isn't that interesting? Today's also Britney Spears' birthday. And I don't know if I've done Britney Spears before, but I decided to do Daryl Hannah. And this is, I think she was in one movie prior to Blade Runner, but Blade Runner is really where she takes off. And she plays this, like the opening shot of her in Blade Runner, where she's kind of this almost like this wet cat. Like, look what, that it gets dragged in by this bad weather. Like, it's stunning. Like, the visuals are stunning. Everything about Blade Runner in terms of visuals is stunning. But there's something like really incredibly fragile at the beginning with Daryl Hannah. And then she turns into this like sex kitten killing machine android. And in some ways, I mean, I think that the androids steal the show. And I don't know if that was entirely intentional on Ridley Scott's part. But of course, there's this, theory that Decker, the Harrison Ford character, was also a synth and just didn't know it. But he had some inkling and some thought, like when he looked at his pictures of his childhood, are these even real? Right. But it's the synths that are the stars of Blade Runner, obviously. Rutger Hauer, Mary Sean Young, and then Daryl Hannah. And what's interesting about Daryl Hannah is that she has Algol right on her ascendant, right? Like, there's Algol. And what do we have here? It's one of the first things we see with her cinematically. We have this choker, which is in the position where Algol is, right? This is really fascinating. Like, this is where she jumps out at the screen at us. Like, who is this? And she's like, part dancer, part missing persons. She was a gymnast, and some of that stuff she did in Blade Runner is her, right? Because she's got these moves where she's doing like gymnastic shit. She was trained in all of that. Her mother played a huge role in her life. Moon, kind of first house, second house, cusp, important influence, but also, more than likely winding up being the person that carries them through financially. Her mother, I think her mother divorced her father, and Daryl Hannah was pretty young. And her mother winds up marrying Haskell Wexler. And if you don't know who Haskell Wexler is, Haskell Wexler is one of the great cinematographers of Hollywood. So there's also the Wexler clan. And so she becomes kind of part of that, right? So it's interesting. And so Daryl Hannah was raised Catholic, but Wexler is actually Jewish. So she gets kind of indoctrinated into kind of an interfaith family. And the other thing about her chart is, again, like when we first see her and she grabs our attention, we have Aquarius on the midheaven, which to me is very it's science fiction. It's the future. And she has Vesta there, right? Conjunct her midheaven. I think it's really interesting that, well, first of all, I think she's also a very cause-oriented person. She's an environmentalist, and she's gotten arrested numerous times. And I feel like when we talk about Vesta in terms of long-range goals, long-range planning, like what's, the eternal flame, like I think we can see this for Daryl Hannah as social justice. And she has a lot of that, especially on the environmental side in her chart. She's got a Pluto true node conjunction in Virgo in the 5th house, right? And and what is it doing? Well, it trines Jupiter, it trines Saturn in Capricorn. So this is where kind of her superpower is. Part of it is this activist side. Like she's gone to jail. She chained herself to this fence in LA where they had this urban farm in Watts. They'd had it there for a long time, and it got bought by some dude, and he, was basically, going to develop it and turn it into a warehouse. And it's like, it's kind of a cool thing to have in Watts. Like those people don't have a lot. Let them have a fucking garden. And they actually raised enough money to buy the land back from the guy at a profit. He said no. What an asshole. Anyway, the Venus-Saturn conjunction, I think, is also very interesting. Why is that? Well, it's because it represents relationship, right? And it's somebody older with somebody younger. And who has she wound up being with? Who did she marry? And she married him later in life. That's a Venus-Saturn conjunction. Hello, it's Neil Young, right? She and Neil Young are an item and have been for a while. And she actually produced a movie about Neil Young, documentary. And partnership is really important for Daryl Hannah. She was born on a full moon. And I feel like that's also been very helpful for her, just in terms of being noticed, right? With that full moon in Gemini. But a partnership is important. And we have the 6th house cusp, which is Scorpio, right? So she would be interested in Scorpionic people in terms of their intensity. They would draw her in relationship. And Neil Young is a Scorpio. And she's done work with Neil Young. And some of it is creative work. Like she's made movies and stuff with Neil Young, like for him. And so I think her chart is really fascinating. You can see her chart. She grew up in an unusual family. And she started to work also quite young. I remember seeing, I was like, I don't know, maybe 19 years old. And I was at this woman's house. She was this older woman, and I knew her from college, and we had a party at her house. A pool party. It was really cool. It was a lot of fun. And she was European, and she had this Helmut Newton tabletop book. And I think it was maybe the first time I'd seen Daryl Hannah, or it was maybe shortly after Blade Runner. And so because she's tall and statuesque, and Helmut Newton almost always had these like Amazons that he would photograph. I have to admit, I like Helmut Newton's photography. I know, what does that say about me? Scorpio rising. But I saw her, I'm like, holy shit, this is very, you can find a print or two, but those Helmut Newton prints are, first of all, they're hard to find and they're very expensive. But there was this one book, and she was in there, and she was standing in a balcony, and she had her top off, and she was just wearing panties. I'm like, man, that's kind of a stunning photo, right? And shocking, but in kind of a good way. And again, I feel like, that's the body, and, displaying the body with Taurus on the ascendant. I think this is a very interesting chart. And the sort of the genesis of why I was talking about that is to have a parent who's like kind of in the business and around the business that would allow her daughter to actually do that, right? And like, that's very Uranian in the fourth house. So again, she grew up in a mixed, literally a mixed family. I'm not sure how much of a practicing Jew Haskell Wexler was, but it would have to have seeped into her emotional root, right? And some of it would be because Jewish people have been always at the forefront of social causes. I mean, always, whether it's communism or socialism or the whole March to Freedom in the 60s. I mean, they were always casting a pretty large shadow over that. So the social cause and activism, I think, was probably kind of in the air with Uranus, being kind of raised as a bit of a radical, right? It's a very interesting chart. Very, very interesting chart. And she's also missing part of a finger. Did you know that? And Gemini rules the phalanges. She's missing part of a finger. And sometimes when she acts, she has a prosthetic part of her finger that she adorns. I think she's found true love with Neil Young. I really do. She's found that fifth house connection with Pluto and the true node, and coming right up there in training, getting married later in life, and marrying an old man. So real quick story and a cool story. I had a very interesting session with a client yesterday, and I was looking at his chart. I'm talking about Neptune getting ready to conjunct his Venus, and we're getting into this relationship, partnership, and I kept coming back to this, right? This Neptune Venus conjunction. And then he tells me, I've seen that movie Splash like 8 or 9 times. I really love it. And this is not an airy fairy guy. This is a gritty, Gen X, grindy skateboarder who's matriculated into the data world. Really interesting guy. And he has no problem talking about, how he loves this movie Splash and how it made him feel really, really good. And he wanted to be Tom Hanks so he could get closer to Daryl Hannah, the mermaid. It's like this Neptune-Venus conjunction. And then I looked at his true node. His true node is in Cancer conjunct Sirius. And I'm like, wow, man, there's a whole story here with your true node. And not just Sirius, but Sirius B. And the Dogon, and Nomo being this water god, right? Which brings all the tools of life to the Dogon tribe. It's a fascinating, if you want to spend some time immersing yourself in some very interesting myth and lore, look up the Dogon people, Sirius B and Nomo. So we're talking about this, and I'm just like, okay, I got to figure out where this guy's true node is showing up. I have this hunch. I just have this hunch. And this is what I like. You're not going to find this with fucking AI. I'm sorry, you're not. I have this hunch that I need to figure out where his true node is. Relocated. And I do it. And his true node, not only his true node, but when you get into astrocartography, they have these circles, and they're called power centers. It's where the energy of that line is at its peak. His true node runs right through freaking Hawaii. Okay. And I had just told him this story about my ex-wife who got involved with this guy. I don't know how involved she got, but he was this dude who wrote this book about mermaids. I had him on my show a long time ago. And he would photograph these women would come to him, and it was like this weird kind of semi-erotic, like he was like the Helmut Newton of mermaid poses down by the ocean. And she like matriculated into his world. And I found that out through a photograph. Like, what is she doing with this? Anyway, so I've been talking about this. I've been talking about Hawaii. And then all of a sudden, bang, there's that true node. It's right on Hawaii. And I'm like, dude, you got to go there. And we've been talking about Daryl Hannah. And then today, Daryl Hannah's birthday. So this is what I love about astrology and synchronicity. You're not going to find it from AI. You'll find tools, and some of them will be very helpful. But unless AI is super self-aware and sentient and has the ability to be hunchy and instinctual, it's not going to be able to do that. I just made the coordinate thing happen. It wasn't even a coordinate thing. It was just like, go there, see what it's all about. And sure enough, that is one of the best places in the world for him to be. And for me, it just smacks of like mermaids and Lemuria. And I know that there's Irish lore around mermaids. I totally get it. But Hawaii is Lemurian. And that, to me, that's where you get that kind of like feel for mermaid culture, I suppose. Anyway, I needed to share that story. And that's one of the reasons why Daryl Hannah is the star of the day, because I wanted to share that story. It's a really cool story. All right, that's it. The link for 15 is in the description for the show. If you want to join me over there, we got a quick turnaround. I got to change studios. I'll be over there 9:10. In the meantime, thank you for being here. Appreciate all your support. Lovely comments from yesterday's show. Thank you so much for all the kind words. Almost brought tears in my eyes. That's saying something for a flinty 29-degree Virgo. Thank you for all that. Use your head in order to discern what's really your heart said, what's possible. Hope you enjoyed the weather. Join us here again tomorrow, where we'll take another whack at untangling the sky. Take care. Bye for now.